Hi, everyone. Sean here with Logos, and welcome to the live training. Hey, thanks so much for attending one of my sessions. I really do appreciate the time you are investing in this because I count it a privilege to be even a small part of your Logos learning process. I have about 28 years of pastoral experience, and I've used Logos for preaching, teaching, Bible study, seminary classes, and more. So I'm just here to help you learn what I have learned. So let's go ahead and begin by practicing using the chat. And let us know in the chat area, please, how long have you been using Logos? If you are brand new to the live training format, you should be able to find a little box on your end there that says type your message here with a send button. And when you respond there, that'll let me know you're hearing me. Things are basically going okay on your end. Plus, you might want to use the chat during the webinar, so please feel free to do so. For now, though, just let us know in the chat area, please, how long have you been using Logos? Well, today we're going to talk about how you can illustrate to illuminate with Logos. And if you preach or teach or lead in any way, then you know the value of a good illustration to add to a particular point. Well, I want to show you how you can use Logos and your library in Logos to quickly and easily find illustrations when needed. So thanks so much for being here. Now, as we get started here, let's make the most of this time. I am going to give you about 30 minutes of content, followed by about 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer. So if you have a question during the webinar, please ask it. But don't put it in chat because I might miss it there later. Switch over to the Q&A tab next to it, put your question there, and then it will be ready for me at the end. And then please stick around for our Q&A time. Also, you will get a full recording of the webinar, so watch for an email within a few hours with the link to that. If you don't get it by tomorrow, then please email me and I will make sure that you do. My email address is in the light blue note there on your end. Notice it. Sean.grubb@logos.com. Plus, if you want to check out my other live trainings, notice you can visit logos.com/SeanGrubb. Again, all that information is right there on your end in the light blue note. Finally, please do me the honor of filling out the survey for this webinar. There's a link to it above chat there, and that's going to be your way to help me serve you better in the future. And it's only going to take you a minute or less to fill that out. But your feedback is always valuable to me and my entire team. In fact, every time you give us a positive survey response, you are supporting our webinar agenda. So please help us to continue to do this for you, okay? All right, well, today I am going to get you started with finding illustrations and filing illustrations. Now, finding illustrations with Logos requires that you have resources in your library for illustrations, providing illustrations. So we'll make sure that we highlight that as we get to it. But again, if you don't have any illustrations in your library, then you're not going to be able to find any, right? But if you have illustration books in your library, you don't have to pull them off the shelf one at a time, so to speak. Logos will help you quickly and easily find illustrations for things that you're looking for. So we want to make sure you can do that. Now, as far as filing illustrations are concerned, that requires some work on your end because that's something you're going to want to take advantage of if you come across illustrations in your life, like experiences that you have, news or current events that you come across, things on the internet, word pictures, whatever it may be. You might come across different things in your life and think, well, that would be a good illustration for, and you fill in the blank, right? Well, you might want to be able to, file those away in a very organized way that you'll be able to get back to later. And that's where the note tool comes into Logos. I'll just make some brief suggestions about that when we get there, okay? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and jump over here to my Logos. And I'm going to make sure you can see what I can see. Looks like we're good to go so far. And I'm going to go ahead and dive in. So here I am logged into my desktop Logos. Now remember, you can use Logos on the desktop app, the web app, and on the mobile app. You can do unlimited installations on computers and devices. All of your content, resources, and more, it all syncs across the platform so that you can use one account anywhere and everywhere. Now keep in mind that you will notice significant differences between the desktop app, the web app, and especially the mobile app, which is to be expected with any app, right? So if you're following along with me, I'm on the desktop. If you're on another app, you will see differences. Plus, I am using a Logos Max subscription with a very robust library and full features. That's another reason why you might see some differences along the way between your Logos and mine. Maybe you don't have a subscription yet. Maybe you are not on the same level as I. Maybe you don't have certain resources I show. Now, even though that could happen, don't be alarmed by it, because you should still be able to learn from all of this. And if you're missing anything that you would gain in an upgrade, you'll actually be more educated if you stick around and watch what you're missing, okay? So with that in mind, let's go ahead and dive in here. So we want to first talk about finding illustrations. Now remember, I'm going to emphasize this time and time again, Logos can't find illustrations if there's no illustrations to be found. I mean, that's just the thing. But if you have illustration resources in your library, then Logos will do all the work of tracking down the ones you want for whatever it is you're looking for. Okay? So I want to show you several ways that Logos will help you do that. Now, before we do that, though, there is also an AI-generated way of getting illustration ideas, and it's built right into the Sermon Builder. So let's go to the Sermon Builder. Let me show you that first, because it's probably the easiest way to kind of brainstorm about illustrations, and it doesn't matter what's in your library. If you have the Sermon Builder, you have the Sermon Assistant tool, then it doesn't matter what's in your library. It'll help you with this task. So let me show you how to take advantage of that. So come on over here to the main toolbar on the left-hand side. Come down here to the Tools menu right here. Click on the Tools menu to reveal it. And then rather than hunting for the Sermon Builder, just come right here to the search bar and type the word Sermon, and it should narrow it down. If you do not have the Sermon Builder or the Sermon Manager, it might be grayed out or not available in some way. Okay. The Sermon Builder is where you write your sermon and lesson documents. The Sermon Manager is where those documents are automatically saved and organized. So let's go ahead and open the Sermon Builder by clicking on it. Now, I just did a webinar earlier today on the Sermon Builder, and that's something that kind of comes up recurringly. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because I do a whole webinar for it. But this is where you're writing your sermon or your lesson or your devotional or your small group leadership. Anytime you want to document for presenting or leading, the Sermon Builder tool is great for that. Now, I'm going to hover on the right side here. You may want to do this as well until you get the double arrow right there, and click and hold and drag it just a little bit to give yourself a little bit more room. But imagine that you're writing your sermon here and you need a sermon illustration. One way to do that is to come up here to the Sermon Assist tool. Click on the Sermon Assist tool right here. Right here. Click on that. It's going to open up this info sidebar with the Sermon Assistant tab already chosen. Now, there's some options here, but we're clicking on illustrations right here. Click on illustrations. Imagine you want to find an illustration for forgiving others. So I'm going to click in the box right here. I'm just going to do forgiving others. Okay. That's the idea that I want an illustration for. What kind of illustration do you want? Serious, emotive, or lighthearted? I'll do serious. What type of illustration do you want? You can choose multiple ones if there's check marks. So I'll just do hypothetical. Okay. How about the audience? Is it going to be for children or teens, adults? What's it going to be for? Well, I'll just leave it set as is. And again, then you just click on generate. Right here we go. So here's some illustrations. Now, it's important that you understand that these are ideas only. It's a sermon assistant that is AI generated. These are illustrations that are AI generated. Even it says it right up here, which means they're not facts. Anything that sounds factual to you, you're going to want to check out and make sure. But either way, these are going to be able to help you brainstorm for ideas. Like when you need an illustration, starting with a blank page is no help whatsoever. But when you need an illustration and your sermon assistant has provided you with several ideas, and if you scroll down, you can actually generate more, as many as you want to continue to generate, that's going to be helpful, okay? And when you come across one, if it's one you want to use, all you have to do is click on the insert option. It'll put it into your sermon, and you can go ahead and modify it from there, update it from there, change it from there. And what I find is that this sermon assistant tool often brings me ideas that prompt my own memories, creativity, word pictures, things like that. Anything that sounds factual, I can check out and confirm the details on and bring it back in here. But it's a great way to brainstorm for illustrations when you're stuck. And it doesn't matter what you have in your library. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you is the Sermon Assistant tool for a lot of reasons. But one is for illustrations built right in the place where you're going to be writing your documents for teaching and leading and preaching, okay? All right. Also, while we're here, I want you to be aware of the popular quotes tool as well, right here, popular quotes. Click on popular quotes, and what this is going to give you is actual factual quotes. So let me put in here forgiveness. I'm just going to put in forgiveness. And look what we're getting. Here Kierkegaard, Spurgeon, Oswald Chambers, Martin Luther, John MacArthur, Spurgeon, Luther. There's Thomas Aquinas, Leon Morris, Chrysostom, Swindoll. So you can see there's modern writers, there's historical writers, there's even church fathers that are included here. And what is this? What is this giving me? Let me explain what this is giving to me, and to anyone who has the sermon builder. It is giving you access to over 1 million quotes from thousands of resources, whether you have the resource or not. That is very powerful. Right here where I'm writing, right here where I'm preparing to lead, to teach, to preach, whatever it might be, I have access. Now, it doesn't give you those resources, but it gives you the quotes. And anytime I like a quote, if I find a quote here, here's one from Martin Luther, I can click on add. It's going to pop it right in there, even put a slide up for me if I want to. I can change all of this. You can customize all of this, but there you go. Now, remember the difference. The Sermon Assistant tool gives you illustration ideas, not facts, ideas. Whereas the popular quotes tool, even though it's just one kind of illustration, a quote, that is, it's giving you factual quotes from over 1 million quotes from thousands of resources in the Logos Digital Library, whether you have them or not, okay? So if you have the Sermon Builder, you're pretty well equipped with being able to come up with some illustrations and quotes for whatever it is you're writing. All right, so that's what I wanted to show you first. Okay, and I X'd out of that back to where we started here. Okay, so just gonna kind of X out of your sermon builder there. Let's get back to the dashboard probably pops up for me. We're back to here. Okay, all right, now let's talk about the illustration guide section. Now, this is where Logos is powerfully going to utilize your illustration resources to make it easy for you to find an illustration based upon a text or a topic or theme. And you don't have to go to your library at all. You don't have to look things up. You don't even have to use the search tool if you use the illustration guide section. And the great thing is that it's designed based around either a text or a theme. And so if you are preaching on a text, you can use it for a text. If you're preaching on a theme, you can use it for a theme. If you're teaching on one or the other, you can do the same thing. Just bring that section up per whatever it is you're looking at. Now, the illustration guide section is by default included in the passage guide and the topic guide. Okay. However, you can use them separately. This is I don't have time to really develop this too much, but this is something that people are not always aware of that I find extremely helpful and pretty powerful. And that is to realize that whenever you have, like if you have the passage guide or you have the topic guide, you've got all these sections and it's very nice. However, some of the sections you might want to use separate from the guide individually at times. You can do that with any of the sections. Keep that in mind. But I want to at least show you this illustration guide section in both of those tools. All right, so let's do it. Let's come up here to guides. Click on guides. And then let's go ahead and find the passage guide. Now, I think the easiest way is just to, in the search bar, type in PASSAGE. Probably it's going to narrow it down here under guides to the passage guide right there. See that? Just click on the passage guide to open it up. And let's go ahead and put in Ephesians 4:32. That's what it was putting in for me from before. But all you have to do is do EP 4 space 3:2. Ephesians 4:32. Hit enter, and it's going to run. Now, the passage guide has multiple sections with links and more, resources and more, data sets, tools, fact book reports, and more, resources from your library, and more and more and more that will help you to understand this text better. It's one of the best tools to bring up when you're digging into a text because it does all the work of looking things up for you in your library. Okay? And if your library is good, you're going to get good results. Okay? Now, I do a whole webinar on the passage guide, so you might want to check that out. But right now, I just want to look at one section. So, if your sections are not collapsed all like mine, then in any section, just hover. Maybe this commentary section would be a good place. It's usually at the top. Hover on the commentary section, right-click on the commentary section, and choose to collapse all. Choose to collapse all. And when you do that, all the sections should collapse. It should look like mine now. Then scroll down all the way to the bottom almost. And notice right here is the illustration section. Now imagine what you've got going on here. You're studying a passage and you're getting all your commentaries, all your theologies, all your data sets, all the important words. You know, you're getting all kinds of fact book reports, all the kinds of things from your library, from your data sets, from your tools that are helping you to understand this text. And you're understanding it better and better and better so you can preach or teach it. But you also would like to have some illustrations for this particular text. Right here it is. Right here is the section. And this section is finding illustrations from your library based upon themes and topics in the text. Let's expand it to reveal it. Click on the illustration section here, and it's going to reveal all of these different words. Bitterness, Christ, commitment, compassion, fellowship. These are all words that are related, that are either in your verse or related to your verse. They're like topics or themes or words that are related to your verse or in your verse or verses that are tags throughout Logos that are bringing up illustrations below. And the larger the word, the more the illustrations you have in your library. Now, we could see it viewed by way of cloud, which is a little bit more visually appealing to some, but it's still, it's still the larger the word, the more illustrations you have below, which I'll mention more about here in a moment. Or you can do like I do usually because I'm boring. I like list. because usually I'm looking for a particular theme or topic in that verse that I want to illustrate. So that's what it's going to give me right here. Okay. But let's go back to tags right here, just so you can see this. So if I click on, for example, bitterness right here, then notice illustration resource, illustration resource, illustration resource. This is the illustration in the resource. But I only have a short list. If I click on forgiveness, for example, which is a larger word, see that? Then I've got more. Click on more, I got a lot more. And then what it does is it gives me the actual, this is one illustration from this book, another illustration from this book, another illustration from this book, okay? So for example, here's forgetting and forgiveness from 1,500 illustrations for biblical preaching. Don't click on the resource because it will take you to the beginning. You don't want to go to the beginning of the resource. You want to go right to the illustration in the resource. So click here, it opens it up. Give it a moment here, and here it is. I can read this, find out more about what it is, see if it's a good illustration for what I'm looking for. But do you see what Logos has done here? Logos has done all of the work, probably eliminating hours of work, looking up illustrations in all these resources that I have in my library. Now, the other thing, too, is remember that my list of illustrations is only as good as my illustration library. If you don't have any illustration books in your library, Logos doesn't have anything to give you. You haven't given anything to Logos, so Logos can't give anything to you, okay? So you say, well, I'm never going to read those books. You bet. I know that. I'm never going to take this 1,500 illustrations for biblical preaching. I'm never going to sit down at night before bed and read that book from cover to cover. You know, I'm not going to. But I'm so glad I have it, along with all my other illustration books, because in seconds, really, I was able to find a whole list of illustrations for a theme in a verse that I'm preaching or teaching on, just like that. Okay? So that's the illustration guide section for the passage guide. Now let's do the same thing with the topic guide. It's called the same thing. This gets a little confusing because the section's called the same thing, but it works based upon themes or topics rather than passages. So come on over here, right over here to guides again. Click on guides and let's type in the search here, TOP. I think that's probably enough. Let's just do the whole thing. Topic. Right down here it is. We got a lot of, the word topic is in a lot of different things. But right here, guides, topics, see that? Find the topic guide. Once you find it, click on it. It'll open it over here. Now mine opens up to forgiveness because that's where I put it last. That's where I had it last. But just go ahead and type in here and type in there forgive. Okay. And with the topic guide, you're going to want to type then choose because it's pulling from a whole, huge wealth of topics and themes. Just type something in and then choose from the list what looks good. Thankfully, we've got the topic of forgiveness right there. Click on that, and here's the topic guide. Now, let's do the same thing. Find a section. Find a section. Right-click on the section. Collapse all from that section. Then come down to the illustration guide section right here. Click on that to expand it, and now you've got that. Now, I want you to see something. If you compared these lists right here, you'd see they're the same. Why? Because I did a search here with a verse, but illustrations are topically oriented in Logos. And so this verse has several topics and themes that are related to it or tagged in it. And then I get the list of those illustrations per that topic or theme. Well, here I went right to the theme. So I'm just getting the topic or the theme list. Okay? It's same thing, really. But the point is, this is just the way you want to think. Okay? If you're actually preaching or teaching or leading based upon a verse or verses, use that first, and then you can pick maybe a theme tagged in the verse that you want to hone in on for these illustrations. If you already know the topic or the theme, use the topic guide and use the illustration section there. Now, I want to close these. Come up here and close them. And I want to show you something. Okay? Come over here to guides, right here. Click on guides again. And in the search box, type in ILL. And I want you to see something. Look at this. Take a look at this and think about this for a moment. Remember how I said earlier that you can use these guide sections separately? You can do that here. Okay, so I can use so if I'm studying a topic, illustrations is only one of the things I'm going to want to get. So I'll probably use a topic guide. If I am studying a passage, illustration is only one of the things I'm going to want to do with that passage. So I'll probably use the passage guide. But imagine I've already studied the topic or the theme or the verse. I've studied those things out. And now I'm thinking, boy, I'd like to get illustrations. I just want to go right to the illustration guide section. So I can do the same thing just by way of example. Notice how they're called the same thing, but they're in different sections. That's how you know which guide you're working with. Plus, when you go into the guide, it's going to tell you what to put in. If this is a passage guide illustration section, you put a passage in. If it's a topic guide illustration section, you put a topic in. It'll tell you that here. And you can run the same thing and do the same thing with just the illustration guide section. Okay? All right. Now, I'm closing that out. And again, we've talked about the Sermon Assistant in Logos Sermon Builder. We've talked about popular quotes in the Sermon Builder. We've talked about the illustration guide section. We're getting a little bit more and more elaborate here, a little more complex. Okay, the Sermon Assistant, anybody can use that, right? Just use natural language. You know, you get some ideas from AI generated Sermon Assistant. You can use that. Okay, but the illustration guide section, just a little bit more leveling up, I would say. And it does depend upon what's in your library. So you gotta have some, books in your library and things like that. Illustration books in your library. Okay. Now let's go a little bit more advanced, because sometimes finding an illustration based upon just a verse or just a topic is not enough. You want to get a little bit more targeted. Okay. This is where you're going to want to use the search tool. Okay? However, you don't want to search through your whole library with the search tool, because you'll get a lot of results that aren't really illustrations. So you want to be able to do maybe like a smart search with a whole sentence or a question, natural language searching, but you want to do that with just your illustration resources. So here's what you do. You first create a collection. Then you use the search for just that collection. That's what I'm going to show you how to do briefly here. Now, this is a little bit more advanced, a little bit more elaborate. And I'm going to step right through it, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to go at a pace where you can keep up with me. But I'm not, I want you to know you can learn more about these things in my other webinars. I do a webinar on building collections. I do a couple of different webinars on search. So if you're brand new to any of these concepts, I apologize if it's like a lot in a little bit of time. But again, the whole point of this webinar is about finding illustrations. So I want to give you this very powerful, a little bit more complex way, but I think that you can go back and review it and learn more about some of these things. So the first thing we want to do is create the collection. And what we're doing by that is we're taking all of our resources in the library and we're narrowing down to just the ones that we want for whatever it is we're utilizing it for, okay? So let's do it, all right? So come over here to Tools, right here to Tools. Find the Tools menu. Click on the Tools menu, and when it opens up, in the search bar right here, type COLL. That'll be enough to narrow it down to the Collections tool. Go ahead and click on the Collections tool to open it up. Now, again, I do a whole webinar on this, so I'm not going to be teaching all there is to teach about collections. I'm just going to step through it. I'm just going to build this collection. You can follow along and you'll learn as you go. First thing we want to do is we want to name it. Right here's where we name it. So I'm going to click in here, the name, I'm going to click in there. Click again, and then I'm going to highlight unnamed, and I'm going to call this illustrations. ILL illustrations. There we go. Illustrations. I have to kind of say it to remember it. So you see that? Illustration collection. Now, I'm going to put a rule in. Why? Because if you use a rule, then this collection is dynamic, which means it will grow if the rule applies to new books that come into your library. If you create this collection and you have no books right now, when you buy a collection of illustration books or whatever, and they come into your library, they'll automatically go into this collection. So here's what I want to have. This is what I'm going to type. TYPE. Sorry, it's type. I'm typing type. Okay, but it's type. It's a type. It's a category in Logos. Okay, I'm going to do colon, no spaces, and then I'm going to do illustration. ILL illustration. I have to always say it there. Illustration. Okay. I mean, I can even put the S on the end there. It doesn't matter. So there you go. Now, what I told Logos to do is look through my entire library, which, by the way, in this demo account, over 16,000 resources. I've got over 16,000 resources. Imagine you were trying to find an illustration in 16,000 resources. That would be impossible, okay, or extremely difficult, not impossible, okay. In fact, I'm showing you how possible it is by creating a collection. So now notice when I do type illustrations, I'm telling Logos, look through the type category and find any books that have illustrations in the type category. And look what it did. It brought in 24 books from my library. I like that because now I can use this for a collection. Now I can use this for a search. I don't want to search 16,000 resources for an illustration. I just want to search these 24 books. So watch this. It automatically saves. It automatically saves. So let's go ahead and close our collection. And then let's open the search tool right here. Search right here. Click on search. And we want to go to a book search right here. This is very important. You do not want an all search. You do not want a Bible search. You want a book search. Books means your library. Okay. All right here. This is, I don't think quite realize this. This defaults to all, I think, when you're new to Logos, and people are using all search all the time. And all search, listen to what it does. It searches through the entire Logos digital library, whether you have those resources or not, which means you're going to end up getting a lot of locked resources. In other words, hits from books you don't have. Okay? So that's all. Now, all has its powerful uses. In fact, it's got some sections in it that's unique to it, like a fact book section and some other cards that are unique to it. And that's great. But when you really know you're looking in your books and you don't want to find things from books you don't have, then use the books. Unless you're looking in your Bible, then if you're looking for verses, use Bible. But use books. And by the way, I do webinars on search, so you can learn more about search from my webinars. Okay? But now look what we've done here. We want to go to books. Now, I was using this earlier for something else. See this little blue hyperlink here? Yours probably is your books. See that? That means your entire Logos, your library, whatever it is. But remember, we don't want that. So here's where we can narrow down to that collection. Right here's where we find it. Click, scroll down till you get to your collections. Then scroll alphabetically to the illustration collection right here. Here it is. Click on that. And now, whatever search you do here, it's just here. And the great thing is, with Smart Search, you can just use natural language. You can put in as elaborate a sentence you want to put in there. So I might want to say, how about forgiving others as God has forgiven, let's see here, me, from Ephesians 4:32. So I want an illustration from my illustration collection that is about forgiving others as God has forgiven me, from Ephesians 4:32. Hit enter. and Logos is giving me results. Notice the 19 results here I'm getting, and I'm getting a synopsis card, which is basically an AI-generated summary of the top results. Click on more to see the whole card with the resources cited here. Okay, it looks like it's one, several here. But look what it's doing. It's pulling illustrations from my library and from my collection. And I can put in whatever natural language I want to put in. If you want to be able to do easy Google-like natural language searching for illustrations in your library targeted on your illustration books, this is the way to go. And once you have that, I mean, I could do this in seconds all day long, very easily, and get all kinds of results here. And you're going to want to learn more about the search tool and summarization and the hits here and all that. But basically, I can click on an article right here. It's going to open up. Here's that illustration. I could use this illustration right now, just like that. All right. So that's finding illustrations. Now, briefly, before we get to the questions, and if you did not submit your question yet, you're going to want to submit it soon because we are coming to the end. I want to just give you a quick and easy way of filing illustrations. Now, again, this is going to require some work for actually hunting things down. But in reality, if you set up the system and you just live your life and do what you normally do and read and all that, you'll probably come across things that you'll be thinking, boy, that's a great current event for an illustration. That's a great personal experience that I just went through for an illustration. That's a great word picture that I just thought of for an illustration. Okay. That's a great website that I came across for an illustration. And as you come across these things, if you have a way to save them in an organized fashion so that you can get back to them in a usable way, that's going to increase your own, illustrations. And in fact, those illustrations might become even more valuable because they're just more meaningful to you. Okay. So what I'm going to suggest is just use the note tool built into Logos to save them, to record them. Now, we usually use the note tool in Logos for our research, and when we're trying to take notes on passages or take notes in books or whatever. But you can use the note tool to take notes for anything. You don't have to anchor it to text. You don't have to anchor it to books. Although I'll show you that anchoring will help here as well. So let's come to the note tool. Let's come over here to the tools menu right here. Click on tools. Okay. In the search tool, or in the search menu of the tools menu, that's what I'm trying to say. Type in there NOT, that should be enough. NOT, all right? And let's go ahead and drag the notes tool to fill the screen. Drag the notes tool, click, hold, drag, hover in the middle, and let go, and the notes tool will fill the screen. Now, I just did a whole webinar earlier on the notes tool, or was that maybe it was yesterday, but I do a webinar on the notes tool. We've got all kinds of resources on the notes tool. You can learn more about it. So I'm not going to I'm not teaching you about the notes tool. I'm just going to kind of step through what I would recommend here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create a notebook for illustrations. One notebook, one illustration notebook. Now you can advance beyond that later. But for now, just get this one illustration notebook, and then each note is an illustration that you save in it. So let's create the notebook first. So right here in the notes tool, if your sidebar is not showing here, click this button right here. Click it to collapse it. See that? Click it to open it. You want to have this sidebar opening to reveal the filters and the notebooks. Then click on the notebook icon right here. When you do, click on the plus button right here to add a notebook. Click on the plus button. Let's call this our illustrations notebook. Illustrations notebook. Hit enter, and it saves it alphabetically. Now, click on that notebook right here so that now when you take notes, they're going in that notebook. Come up here to the top right. Up here, see the new note right there? Click on new note in the top right-hand corner. And let's create a template first. Okay. Now, you can't technically create templates, but what I do is, and what I recommend is, you can actually take one note in this notebook and kind of create a template out of it. Then whenever you create a new note, you have a new illustration to put in it, you can copy this information and paste to start with it. So I'm going to do caps lock and do template like that. Caps lock. So now I know that it's going to be visible, a little more visible for me. This is my template. Now, I'm going to copy and paste something in here, and I'm going to put it in the chat. So hold on a bit. I'm just going to put this right. Let me just put this in here, and you'll see it here in a moment. There. Okay. Now I'm going to don't type feverishly. Okay. Watch. I'm going to come over here to I'm going to put it in the chat. Look at the chat there in a moment. I'm going to pop that in there, and I just put those little details there in the chat. So you can grab those if you're taking notes, or if you want to just quickly do that in a note tool. Okay, now what do I got here? I've got a note template because it says template, and here are the points that I'm going to collect when I add a illustration. And I'm just going to keep this note in this notebook as is. Let's say tomorrow I come across an illustration and I want to put it in my notebook. Well, I'm going to come here to the template first, and I'm going to copy just these points. Copy it. Then I'm going to come up here and do a new note. And in the new note, I'm going to paste those details in. And now I can begin to add the details of the illustration. So maybe this is an illustration I want to give a title to. For now, oops, I have my caps lock on there. All right. We'll do, how about forgiveness? Okay. You probably think of something a little bit better. You might put the details in. If this is a story, you might retell the story. If it's a word picture, you put the word picture details in. If it's a current event, you might retell some of the current events. If you got it from a website, you can put the URL in. You can cite it. You can put the date here that you put it in. And notice right here, you can put the date in that you used it first. And then I like to have this at the bottom because here's what you can do. Every time you use this illustration, you can add a date at the bottom, knowing, well, I've used this 3 times in my life. Last time I used it was last year about this time or whatever. Okay. Now, the other thing that you can do with these illustrations is add anchors and tags, which is going to make them even better and easier to find. So if I use this illustration to preach on Ephesians 4:32, just come right here to the 3-dot panel menu right there of the illustration, not of the tool, but of the illustration right here, and do add anchor. Where do I want to add this to? I want to add this to EP4:32, which Logos knows is Ephesians 4:32. Click on done. And now that has been tagged. And watch this. If I click and hold and drag this Bible open to another tab right here, I'm going to have an icon right there. I'm going to have a little note indicator right there, and it works both ways. So I've got that. I can turn that visibility off and on as I want to, but that's great. And then imagine that I use this. If I use this if I use this illustration when I'm preaching another text, I might add that additional anchor. So I might have 5 verses throughout the Bible that I've preached or taught on that I've used this illustration for, and it'll all be connected with this. I can even come down here and add tags. And when you start typing a tag, if you've used it before, you can select it. If you haven't, you can add it. So I can click here, and maybe this is a word picture illustration. So I'm just going to start typing word and since this is one I used before, I can go ahead and click on word picture. Maybe it's a current event. I can type in current. Maybe I don't have to see current event. I don't have that one, so I'm going to go ahead and click on enter that one. Okay. Maybe this is an illustration on forgiveness, so I'm going to add that as a topic. Forgiveness, right there. I've used this before. And what's great is these tags are all becoming filters right over here. So here's current event. Here's forgiveness. Here's word picture. And imagine over the years, I can bring up all my current events that are word pictures, or all my word pictures on the theme of forgiveness. I can even do this per whatever book of the Bible I'm preaching on. So, I mean, this is going to become over time a very powerful system for collecting, and not only collecting, but using. Imagine, because what happens is if you take that illustration and file it away somewhere, how would you ever get at it? You'd forget all about it. But with this system, if you're preaching or teaching on a theme or a topic or a passage or whatever, you're going to have a system that's going to be able to be reminding you, so to speak, of these different illustrations. They're not going to be hidden away without being able to be found. All right. Well, that's pretty quick, I know, but a lot to take. I think a lot to think about there, and hopefully it'll be helpful. You can review and so forth. All right. Now, that's what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to check out the questions. Now, if you did not get your question in yet, you're going to want to submit that question soon because we are coming to an end. But before we do, notice the help center right here. This is very important because this is going to help you learn more and get questions answered after the webinar. You can come here and do an AI-assisted search. You can choose an option. It's going to launch you into all things Logos support, whether online or built in. Great way to get some help beyond the webinar. Also, please don't forget to fill out the survey before you go. That's going to be your way to help me serve you better. And remember, every time you give us a positive survey response, you are supporting our webinar agenda. So please help us to continue to do this for you, okay? Now, I popped it up in front of you there so that you could get to it easily. And if you click on it, it's not going to close the webinar on you. It's just going to open it separately so that you can do that and still stick around to see if we get any questions. Now, if you don't mind, why don't you go ahead and get that started while I grab a quick drink and take a brief pause. Hold on one moment, please. All right. You should have that survey going by now. And you can finish it here in a little bit. Don't feel like you have to be rushed on that. Also wanted to mention that I do a live Q&A session monthly that I call Logos Office Hours. And again, it's just a whole session on just live Q&A. You're able to ask your questions during that time. You can learn more about this and my other live trainings at logos.com/Sean Grubb. And that link is right there in the light blue note on your end. I think you can click on it and go to it, maybe even save it as a bookmark there. But again, if you want to learn more from me, visit logos.com/Sean Grubb. And if you're not on a Logos subscription or you need to upgrade your level, then I would recommend that you use this telephone number to do so. I know you can do things online, but you're going to be able to, I think, make a better decision, be better informed, get your questions answered by talking to our experts at 888-510-8262 today. Well, that's all I have to mention. And as best I can tell here, we didn't get any questions. I was kind of looking forward to maybe trying to help with some questions, but it looks like we did not get any questions. So that means I'm going to be able to go ahead and log off. So, hey, thanks so much for being here. And I really appreciate your support of the webinar ministry have going on here. So if you want to check out more of my live trainings, again, don't forget about logos.com/Sean Grubb. Also, please don't forget to fill out the survey on your way out. And hey, I will look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in another webinar soon. Thanks for being here. Godspeed.